I'm against race-based affirmative action quotas, especially if any still exist.
And also lowering college admission standards.
Yes. Yes.
I was there for the entire discussion on Tuesday. We reposted it, and I listened again with the chat. And
you listened again.
You at
I ever? Okay.
No, you at no time.
Yeah.
Endorsed the position of affirmative action. You laid out the logic behind affirmative action.
Right.
Which you and I could probably lay out the logic behind race realism, but we're not fucking race realists either, right?
Right.
Like, until you step up and ask, you shouldn't assume that kind of shit. So we have to talk about affirmative action because obviously a lot of people believe. I don't know how we got roped into a debate about affirmative action when nobody told us we were debating affirmative action.
I know how we got roped into it, but
we're going to try to do that without calling Distributist a racist piece of shit. But I might slip up, just so you know. Okay, I'll try to be on my best behavior.
Still, about that joke on Twitter where you said he thinks that gay people cause hurricanes.
No way.
Still triggered by that.
Really? How do you know he's still triggered by that?
He just tweeted about it today. He's like, Adam unironically said this to his follower. I'm like, okay, it's pretty obviously this is a fucking
joke.
That
was a joke. That was so obviously a joke.
We don't honestly think that you think that gay people cause hurricanes.
So I can't remember.
You think trans kids cause hurricanes. Come on.
I can't remember. So we're going back and forth. Sitch is in there. I'm in there. We're going back and forth. The Distributist on Twitter, and I dropped the funniest joke Twitter has seen in a long fucking time. I say that Distributist believes that homosexuality causes hurricanes. Now that's a solid joke. That is a solid joke.
Maybe I don't think that's a reference. Maybe too many people were too young to get that reference.
Is it? I mean, people have said that before.
But wasn't that famously? Oh my God, what was his name? Said that about Hurricane Katrina. Remember?
George Bush? George W. Bush?
No.
Someone said
who's?
Oh, you're right. Some pastor.
It's that famous like crazy Christian guy.
Yeah.
Who said that? Who said that?
I mean, there's a lot of Christians that believe hurricanes are caused by homosexuality. Let's be real here, okay? I personally do not think homosexuality causes hurricanes, but until there's a study on it, can you imagine? They're like, listen, we are asking the gay community if they can help us with a study this hurricane season. We would like no gay people to participate in any gay activity all through hurricane season in Florida, just so we can have a peer-reviewed study.
Please, if you have to put your genitals anywhere, put it in a member.
Go to Louisiana,
sex, okay? Yeah, go somewhere else. Get out of my state, okay? Was it Pat Robertson? Probably
maybe.
Pat Robertson,
oh yeah, Pat Robertson makes sense.
Pat Robertson.
That's hilarious.
Well,
I forgot about
people
that
think
joke.
Gays cause everything, so that's part for the course.
Why has he still been out of shape about it? This is another thing that is super distressing about it. It's like I was there for the entire discussion on Tuesday. We reposted it, and I listened again with the chat. And
you listened again.
You at no time.
Yeah.
Endorsed the position of affirmative action. You laid out the logic behind affirmative action.
Right.
Which you and I could probably lay out the logic behind race realism, but we're not fucking race realists either, right?
Right.
Like, until you step up and ask, you shouldn't assume that kind of shit. So Dave the Distributist has all been out of shape because, some of the stuff he said in our first conversation, people on the left are going to mischaracterize as racist. They are. They're going to say, he's so his position is unclear. He's mad because we're, filling in the reading between the lines. He doesn't want us to do that, right? But then he does the same exact thing with you.
Well, so I'm glad you re-listened to it, because I was going to, and I forgot, because I was like, I felt like I was being gaslighted. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't remember saying I support affirmative action all in that conversation. I just remember I was defending that it could exist in a liberal framework.
Yes.
And in a liberal society, and it wouldn't cause the downfall of liberalism. But I don't remember ever supporting it because my position on affirmative action has been pretty consistent. I mean, we barely ever talk about it. I mean, even before I started a YouTube channel, I get my position on affirmative action has been pretty consistent, which is I understand why they had it right after Jim Crow, and I think that's fine right after Jim Crow. But nowadays, I don't think race-based affirmative action makes sense. And I think if you want to have some kind of affirmative action policies nowadays, it should be based on socioeconomic status, not race at all.
Yeah.
And
which would be liberal.
Right. And when I say affirmative action, what I mean is, because that means different things to people. Like I don't think that someone should be given extra, like, okay, so for example, if you have two people that are applying for a college and everything is equal, they have the same GPA, the same extracurricular activities or whatever, and one kid, comes from a rich family and one kid comes from a poor family, I'd be like, okay, fine. If the college wants to weigh in favor of the poor kid, if everything's the same, I'm fine with that. That's basically it, which I don't think that's such a controversial opinion.
No.
But anyway, I felt like I was getting gaslit because not everyone, but distributors kept saying I was supporting it. And I was like, I don't remember supporting it in this conversation, but.
Yeah. So, I guess we're kind of talking about it now. Do you want to just continue? Or is that pretty much it?
Yeah, let's keep talking about it. I mean, I don't know. But see, look, Andrew Clark says, in my opinion, for $2, my opinion, Sitch sort of did endorse it. How did I endorse it? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't. Everyone's saying that.
This has never been my position. That's why I don't understand.
Yeah.
This has never been my position ever.
We've never talked about it on the show. We've never affirmative action. Yeah. Like,
I don't even know if we've. Yeah. So I don't. And you said you listened back, and I didn't support it. So I don't understand what people are talking about. Someone pull me a clip. Okay, have the clip. Have a clip of me saying that. And I was curious because I'm like, did I support it in the heat of the debate? Did I accidentally support or something? Because I don't. And if I did, I'll just say like, okay, I don't support it. But someone pulled me the clip if I said something like that. Show me.
Yeah. Anyway. So someone else gave me the insight on the affirmative action stuff. And they say sometimes affirmative action is a proxy for talking about race and IQ. So that's super sus.
Sitch said he was pro-liberalism and academic agent isn't anti-liberalism. I never said academic agent isn't. Oh, no, I said affirmative action, yes. Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
So they're saying that because you're saying you're pro-liberalism and they're saying affirmative action is liberalism, therefore, ergo procto, ipso facto, you're in favor of affirmative action, even though you aren't. Oh,
maybe that's it.
But you could make the argument that affirmative action is illiberal, which I thought was the argument that Distributus was making and you were agreeing with.
Yeah, I said if you're in the strict framework, like the strictest framework of individual rights and advocating for colorblindness and all color, it's like if you're gonna say we need 100% colorblind policies and everything's got to be individual rights and we're deconstructing all groups, it's like, yeah, I understand that. Then it doesn't fit strictly in that framework. And I said that in the conversation. So, this is what frustrates me. And this is as a streamer. Okay. I understand why
that's painful.
I know, right? I understand why so many streamers fall into bad faith tactical decisions. And Destiny does this a lot too, where when you're like debating someone or arguing with someone, you don't give them anything. You just deny everything they're saying. It's because I feel like in a lot of these conversations where I disagree with people, I will agree to a lot of what they're saying because I'm being honest, and then that always gets used against me. It always gets warped and twisted against me. And I think that's why a lot of people are incentivized to behave very badly in these conversations.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
So
The
I don't know.
mischaracterization of positions is just, and not only that, I mean, we're learning because we're just inviting people on to kind of debate with us, discuss things, chat with us. Now I understand why that is such a bad way to go, because without specifically laying out what you're discussing, people walk away assuming your positions are completely different than they actually are. Like, and
Right.
I mean, I kind of had this happen to me with Distributus like a long time ago. The first time I had a conversation with Distributus, he basically laid out the stereotype of the anti-theist over me because he knew that I was an atheist, which, like, as long as I've been on YouTube, I've made the distinction between anti-theists believing that, the world would be a better place without religion. And I'm not an anti-theist. I think religion is helpful for a lot of people. It's very useful in a lot of people's lives. So he basically had a bunch of positions on me that I didn't hold, which was a difficult conversation to have. So I feel like that's going on here too. Like, he comes in and he just thinks, okay, these are the positions that these people hold because they're liberal centrist. Even, I mean, he mentioned a couple times, I think, that he had made a centrist video about this. And I went back and looked. I mean, it's an hour-long video. I didn't watch the whole video, but I watched enough of it to realize, okay, he's not even using the same definition of centrist that we're using. Like, he thinks
What does he mean?
he thinks of centrist as a tribe. This is, these are the attributes of centrist. When I think of centrist, and you probably will agree with me that centrist, a lot of centrists are anti-tribalists. Us specifically are anti-tribalists. And that means centrists can have all sorts of different political and philosophical positions. They're all different. So I don't know how you can make a video saying, declaring this is the problem with centrists.
Right.
Unless the problem is that they're not going to join my tribe, then obviously, yeah.
Well, I mean, we've always said from day one, when we started championing the moniker of enlightened centrist, we always said what that meant was not that you are the exact middle part of the political compass test. What it means is that you're anti-tribal. That's how we always use the term. So maybe that's the problem. People I think everyone has a different definition in their head. It's all Sitch's law of what centrist means. So whatever.
I do, in the context of affirmative action, race-based affirmative action, which neither one of us support. You, I believe, made the argument that, can I even make the argument, or is it going to be completely taken out of context now? I mean, I feel like we're not dealing with honest actors anymore. I really do.
I don't know. I don't know if I think with the affirmative action thing, I think this is what's happened. I think Distributus is trying to, I think he's mad at me for pointing out the fact that he was so evasive in our conversation.
Oh yeah, and I used it in the thumbnail. Oh God.
And so, yeah, and so
I've answered all your questions.
Yeah, and so not willing to lay out the prescription or the way of the world, the way he wants the world to operate. And so now I think he's looking desperately for some revenge. So he's trying to turn the affirmative action thing against us, because this is his payback for saying he was evasive or something.
Yeah, but we don't.
So now he's now he's no, you're evasive about affirmative action. I'm like, bitch, when we had our conversation, I don't think he never asked me. He never said, Sitch, do you support affirmative action right now in America? That question was never asked in that conversation.
Yeah. So, I've done a lot of debates because I was doing debates every week on my Think Club channel for months. And really, there's a lot of haggling that goes on over the question before you ever do the debate, because you're like, I want to make sure the question is structured in a way that's something I have a chance of arguing against, right?
Right.
If the question was, race-based affirmative action for or against, the debate would have never taken place.
Yeah, that's annoying too. I mean, that's annoying too, because I didn't, neither of us knew that he was so fixated on affirmative action.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I don't even remember, I don't think that came up in our first conversation, did it?
Yes. Yeah.
Or if it did, it must have come up very briefly. Because yeah, like,
Somebody,
because someone DM'd me and they were like, and they brought up a good point. They were like, Sitch, Distributus is conceptualizing as if there's some like magical universal affirmative action policy that was implemented in the 60s and has existed since then till today and hasn't worked. And so when in reality, they kind of, the person who DM'd me like went through a bunch of stuff about how, there were various affirmative action policies and most of them have all been, gimped and cut away, very quickly in the following decades. And so the whole framework that Dave was putting up wasn't even a true frame. And I'm thinking like, yeah, that could all be true. And I would have no clue because neither of us really care about affirmative action. Mm-hmm. We've never really looked into it or thought about it very deeply because it's just such a thing we never talk about. But
yeah. Well, someone told me that affirmative action is a proxy that the race and IQ people like to use. So I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to go too deeply into that because I don't want to be accused of saying that that's what Dave is doing.
Right.
Yeah. So
Satoshi was a Reploid for 50 knock knock says if you understand something well enough to accurately explain it, it's obvious you endorse it. There you go.
Yeah, that's.
I think that's how a lot of people. I think that's how a lot of people interpret these conversations. Unfortunately.
They do, yeah. If you understand the position you support.
Well, see, that's why. Was it you? You were saying that you were mad at Destiny for, like, adding into the discourse the prescription versus description thing. Mm-hmm. But I think that's so important because it feels like in so many of these conversations that I watch, not just that we're part of, that any conversation I watch, so often someone merely describing something, like the other person in the conversation gets hyper triggered and thinks that just them describing it means that they support it. Mm-hmm. And I find this is true just in the real world. If I have a conversation with someone, it's like if I just describe something, if I'll describe like the conservative or the Trump position, people like instantly like get fucking triggered. But like, how can you believe that? I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just describing this position. What do you like? Calm down.
Yeah. Well, they have a different version of the position. That's the straw man version of the position that everyone on their side says. So as soon as you start articulating the actual position that the person holds, they're like, oh, you hold that position. That's the wrong position. Yeah.
Right. No, yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point.
So, yeah.
Andrew Clark for $5 says, maybe it's just that you laid it out well and you said it made sense after the Civil Rights Bill. You also said it wasn't anti-liberal. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Just because I explained the logic behind it. And I said, and I do think it was fine after fucking Jim Crow and slavery, I'm fine with them trying racial affirmative action. I just don't think it makes sense in today's world at all.
Yes. Yeah.
Dialogue always with actually a good question, shockingly. Thank you, Dialogue always.
Why would you say why would you?
Because I'm an asshole. What do you mean? Why would I say that?
Is he in the chat? Really?
Yeah, he gave us $10. Thank you, Dialogue always.
Holy shit.
It says, are you talking about affirmative action, the law, or are you talking about affirmative action as pertaining to race quotas? Because they aren't exactly the same thing. That's actually a good question. And something that we should have asked Distributus, because when he just kept saying affirmative action, and I never.
Yeah, we never got a good definition of it.
Yeah, I should have said, well, what do you mean by that? Against, I don't really think about affirmative action. I don't really care that much about it. But yeah, I don't know what Distributus was talking about. I don't know if I assume he meant both. I assume he meant both laws and just the culture of like private institutions having race quotas and stuff. So that's what I guess he was talking about both. That's what I imagine.
Yeah.
And also, like, I don't know. I'd have to even see, because it's hard for me to even. I don't even know if I can think offhand, like, what's an affirmative action law, like a law that was affirmative action offhand. Because is it just like a quota thing? Is it like when, like, if the government says that they want to have, specifically have loans for lower income Black business owners or something, like, is that considered affirmative action? I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
So
I think of affirmative action specifically at hiring, doling out jobs. And that's
yes.
the reason why I think affirmative action is with us today, if it is still with us in whatever form it is because it's a private reward that Democrats can reward their supporters with, which makes me think,
Hmm.
a la selector theory, a la dictator's handbook, which makes me think you're not going to get rid of affirmative action because all of the parties look for any justification to give some perk to their voters because that's the way it works. There's a lot of quid pro quo that goes on in politics. So when you're electing leaders, you're electing them to deliver public policy that the majority of people want. But like if they can slide you a job, you're going to remember that. When they do these stimulus checks, when George W. Bush did his stimulus check, he wanted to make sure it said George W. Bush on the check so that people would know you got this money from me, right?
Right.
Donald
Right.
Trump wanted to do the same exact thing. This is them exercising private rewards for their voters. So,
I mean, I guess that's. I mean, my problem with race-based affirmative action is not that. It's just that I think it causes. I think it's going to cause way more division.
I agree.
In our country. I don't think it necessarily helps things on a wider scale.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to help people, if you want to give people a leg up, which we do with a lot of social policies in our country, I don't see why it shouldn't be based on your socioeconomic status, like almost every other, social welfare program that we have for people.
Is that still affirmative action? I
don't
would
know.
hesitate to
Maybe
even
it's
call
not.
it
Maybe
affirmative action. Yeah.
Excuse me. I don't even know. What is the literal definition of affirmative action? No, I guess it wouldn't be, because apparently the actual definition of affirmative action is a practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups known to have been discriminated against previously. So I guess what I'm suggesting is not even affirmative action at all.
Poor people
By
are always
definition.
discriminated against.
Yeah, but not like there's no group identity like, no poors can work here. Like, right? Like,
as soon as you start working here, you're not poor anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Problem solved.
Yeah, so that's not really a thing. Interesting. Okay, so there you go. I don't even have to say. I just say I don't support affirmative action, period, under that definition. Burnt Sausage for $20. Thank you so much, Burnt Sausage. Says, so what's the extent of acceptable affirmative action like policies to right the injustices of the past? Seems arbitrary. Well, I'll be honest, that's a very hard question. What is the acceptable extent of affirmative action policies?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an answer for that, Adam? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I mean,
I think it's all of it is just an excuse. I just see it all as just an excuse to give.
So you don't even support affirmative action, like right as Jim Crow's ending?
Well, I do, yeah.
Okay,
but it's still it's still an excuse to carve out a voter coalition.
Sure,
they wanted those votes. They were like, listen, we're gonna widen the coalition.
Remove that from the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's look at it as just like, does it work? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think because that's the thing. It's like, does it work? Does it produce the desired results that we want?
Well, it really depends. I mean, if you're talking about lowering standards for college admissions, I think it could be terrible.
Well, exactly.
If you're talking if you're talking about giving low-skilled jobs out in equal numbers to, if you're talking about, factory jobs are being given to whites because, they're discriminating against blacks and really anyone can do the job, then it would work, obviously, because it's just a financial incentive thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the college thing doesn't work. I know, and I'll be honest, I haven't looked into the stats. I know Thomas Sowell makes a very big argument. I think he says he has evidence. I haven't looked into any of it, but he makes an argument against that, saying that actually fucks over students of color who get
Yeah.
in
Yes,
the
because
lower
everyone looks
standards.
at them like there's the diversity higher. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that, but also I think what I thought his argument was that generally when people get into colleges because they lower the standards for them, they almost always do worse.
Hmm.
And that, like, I think it was he said that, I'm trying to remember, I don't remember the numbers, maybe someone in the chat does. Like, he said something like some astronomical number of kids that get into colleges with lower affirmative action standards almost always end up leaving or quitting
Hmm.
because they can't keep up with the course
Right.
load. And
Yeah.
it's better for them to be in a school. It's kind of like his argument, I thought, was it's better for someone to be like the top 1% of a middle grade college than to be like the bottom 10% of an Ivy League college,
Yeah.
essentially, when you're learning, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to be the big fish
so
in a small pond instead of the little fish in a big pond.
Majogen for $5 says, "Isn't affirmative action concept why black doctors were given a bad name to the layperson in the medical field?" I That's the first I've heard about this. I don't think so. I don't remember hearing, or I'm completely unaware of this concept that there was some negative stereotype against black doctors via affirmative action in America.
Well, I
Are you
think there
familiar with
could
this
be.
concept?
I think there
I mean,
could be definitely. If
there could have. I've never heard of
there,
this
it's
before.
so
So
widely publicized that these Ivy League schools are lowering standards to admit
Mhm.
uh, people of color that it just, yeah, it's going to create negative stereotypes.
yeah, it can. I'm not familiar. I've never heard of that before.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's not a study on it or anything.
Right. Well, no, I'm
Maybe
saying is
there
I'm
is.
unfamiliar with this concept, but Bearded Raven for $5 says, "People object to the standards set by affirmative action that are still in place. Check the LAS I pinged you in a reply to links and quotes that explain it." Oh, there you go. The standards set by affirmative action that are still in place. Yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm against race-based affirmative action quotas,
Hmm.
especially if any still exist.
And also lowering college admission standards.
Yes. Yes.
And we're completely against people going to college at all. We think college
Wait a
is
minute. Wait a minute. I never said that.
we think college is a bunch of bullshit.
Yes, yes.
And you should do your own research on the internet. Just
Mm-hmm.
Google QAnon. No, I'm joking. Obviously, I'm kidding around, but so
Okay,
will
I
you think we'll
found.
be able to patch things up with Distributist, or is it like? I mean,
I mean, do you
I
do
call him
you
a dip.
care to?
I
I
call him
guess
a.
that's the real question.
I called him a dipshit on Twitter, which was probably a bit too far, but
Well, do you? I mean, I don't really care, like at all. So you
well,
can
I
do
mean,
whatever you want.
I don't like. I mean, I think more conversations are kind of pointless, but
Sure. I mean, I don't feel any ill will towards
mhm.
Distributist.
Yeah, I don't either.
But
That's
then again, I
yeah.
haven't listened. He did some video stream on our conversation,
Mhm.
which I haven't listened to. So maybe that'll change my opinion. I don't know
Well,
what he
it's
said in
the
it.
last one he did was the centrist one was just terrible.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, you
Did
don't
anyone
even
listen to it?
understand our position.
Well, of course, of course. Did
Right.
anyone listen to anyone in chat listen to
His
his
recent one.
recent his video on us?
Mhm.
Is it bad? Is it good? I
I don't
don't know.
know.
I don't care. I feel like I like the way the last conversation went, and that's really all I care about. So
You what? You liked
I
how it
like the
went?
way our last conversation went. I felt like I came out looking good in it. I felt like I did good in the conversation. So that's all I really care about. I don't bear any ill will towards them after that. So
I remember one line.
yes.
You basically said you're being evasive. And I think it's intentional.
It feels that listen, it feels that way. It feels that way to me. It's just, or maybe he's not. Maybe he's just, autistic or something and doesn't understand what the like basics of conversation. I don't know. But either way.
Matt McIver says Distributus' newest video starts in 5 hours, so it hasn't hit yet.
Oh, I thought it was on Sunday.
No.
Well, I thought it was opposite of streaming.
He set it up to, I don't know if it's like
Okay.
going live or what, but.
When he's not talking to you, he goes back to doubling down on Shaman. Yeah, he did it on Twitter, but it's funny. I guess I feel like I have to change my Twitter behavior because I was watching some of you loyal listeners arguing with Distributus on Twitter. And I was watching him just go back and forth with people, and it made me smile to see him arguing with you guys. And I was like, I gotta not argue with other people's fans because they probably have the same feeling.
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand. I mean, that's like my entire Twitter. I love doing that. Like I go on Twitter and I stir it up, and then everyone is going at everyone else, and I just sit back and
yeah, but that's
just
different.
read
that's
the
different.
stream.
I'm saying I liked watching him get pulled into arguing other people.
Mm-hmm. I'm
like, look at him arguing with people on Twitter.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, that's
right.
How's that different? That's exactly.
No, but I'm saying I've done that though. I've been very guilty of getting sucked into like very long Twitter
You're the
chains
one doing the arguing.
Yes. I've been guilty very often of getting sucked into very long Twitter chains with very dumb people who are not fans of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going back and forth about whatever, and it's such a waste of time.
It is
an incredible
waste. It's a giant
waste
of time.
That's
another thing. He very much comes in like he wants us. He's going to get us to change our positions, which that's a very naive way to even go into these conversations. Mm-hmm. I'm more interested in if both people can walk away understanding each other. I think that's a win.
That's true.
They're not.
That's what I thought. That's what our original conversation was supposed to be. It's supposed to be him explaining that position, mm-hmm. not let me force you into a debate.
Right.
And so I don't take any, I think I think the framing of our conversations is 100% his fault because he came into it like that.
Yes.
Which I've done, and I've made that same mistake too. I mean, when we talk to Kurt, I'll blame myself 100% for making the conversation far more hostile than it should have been or needed to be because I came in really hot, but so I understand, we all make mistakes, but
yeah.
I like Punished Chris in the chat says, don't attribute to malice that which can be explained by autism.
Yeah, Sitch went full David Pakman on Twitter, and I was like, no, why would you do that?
Listen. Well, we won't talk about that. Okay.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.